Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of the customer buying cycle series. Today's video is all about the consideration phase of the buying cycle. So in this phase, we want to make sure that we get our product out in front of shoppers who are considering buying our products. We want to do this efficiently without breaking the bank. So we're going to break down exactly step by step how to do that in this video. But first, if you haven't watched the first video in the series, which is all about the discovery phase of the buying cycle, go ahead and do that so you can find relative audiences who are looking to purchase your product on Amazon. And yes, without a doubt, go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel. Click on the little notification button so you get notified when we have the latest video to help build your brand on Amazon. All right, so for those of you who are unaware of what the customer buying cycle is, this is a brief overview of the buying cycle. We spoke about the discovery phase last week in last week's video, and that feeds into the consideration phase of the buying cycle. Because if we test out in the awareness phase different keywords, different categories, and we see a couple that are working, now we want to be considered for those keywords, those search terms, and those ASINs and those categories in the consideration phase because we know based on data that it works. So let's talk about the consideration phase. You can see that the consideration phase consists of the information search and the evaluation of alternatives. So this is when shoppers are browsing for products and they kind of know what they want, but they're looking at all of the different alternatives. And we want to make sure that your product is set up for success right away. And that has to do with having a well-optimized listing. So you want to make sure that your listing is easily scannable, that people can go down the bullet points and know exactly what the benefits are to them. Make sure you have quality images. Make sure that your listing is way better than your competition. Make sure that you have videos in your listing because people are looking at all different ways to consume the content. They may scan and read, or they may want to watch a video. So have that in your listing as well. So in the consideration phase, people are looking at a variety of things. They're going to be looking at reviews. They're going to be looking at price point. They're going to be looking at the key benefits and features that your product has compared to your competition. So when you create your listing, make sure that there is no doubt or confusion on the listing. Have your friends look at the listing. Make sure that there's no kind of confusion, because if there is, people will be browsing elsewhere and considering other products. And then finally, look at your price point. Make sure that it is competitive compared to your top competitors. And if it's a little bit higher, why is it higher? If those benefits are not there, showcasing why the product is higher in terms of price point, then people might bounce and find an alternative that is cheaper. Okay, and of course, you want to make sure that you have as many reviews as possible. And if you have a couple of negative reviews, make sure you leave a comment and reply to those negative reviews. Tell people what you're doing about it. Respond to it cordially because people are watching and they're looking at this. All right, so let's dive into some key data and metrics with regards to the consideration phase of the buying cycle. Now, it's important to note that these metrics are going to be different than the discovery phase. In the discovery phase, we were going for more reach and more impression share. And with that, we're going to have metrics that aren't as favorable, meaning higher ACOS, lower conversion, and lower CTR percentage. Here in the consideration phase, we want to optimize for break-even ACOS or better. We want a conversion percentage that is improved compared to the discovery phase, and we want a click-through rate percentage that is improved compared to the discovery phase as well. Of course, we always want to avoid high cost per click keywords because these keywords can eat away at our ad spend budget relatively quickly. Impressions are still important. In fact, in this phase, we want to make sure that we get as many impressions as possible because we're trying to collect those touch points. If shoppers see our ads, they see our organic visibility, they see our ads in multiple locations, then those impressions are going to be notable and visible to them, and they are more likely to click on your ad. So collecting those impressions is very important. Of course, new to brand orders, very important to track on all phases of the buying cycle, and especially important in the consideration phase. So let's dive into the 3 different ad types and how to set them up with respect to the consideration phase of the buying cycle. We're going to start with sponsored product ads. So one of your options is to set up an automatic campaign. And with regards to the consideration phase, there are 2 types of automatic campaigns that really resonate well. The first one is close match. Now, the reason why we're going for close match is we're going after keywords that are closely related to the item that we are selling. So we want to be considered for all of those keywords. Now, if you go back to the original video for the discovery phase, we talked about the loose match, and that's keywords that are loosely related. And that's great at discovering new audiences. But here we want to go after closely related audiences, very closely matched keywords to make sure we're considered for those sales. Now, substitutes has to do with targeting our closely related competition and showing up on their product detail pages. Now, the reason why this is an absolute yes is because our ads are going to show up on our most most closely related competition who's selling things that are very similar to us. So absolutely, this is great for the consideration phase, because if shoppers are on your competition, we want to help them to consider our products using this type of automatic campaign. And if you go back to the discovery phase, we used compliments. Now that is complementary products, and that's a way to start to get new audiences and get our reach out there. Here, we're going after more highly targeted audiences, and we're helping them to choose our product over the competition. Here's an example of what that looks like inside of Seller Central. You can see the close match and the substitutes has been turned on. And overall, these campaigns are doing really well. When you set them up appropriately and you have really good listings, you can see really good conversions and a relatively low ACOS still with automatic campaigns. All right, so how about manual campaigns and setting up for the consideration phase of the buying cycle? Absolutely. We're going to use related phrase match keywords. Now, the key here is related keywords. We don't want to find a bunch of different keywords that are sort of unrelated or complementary. We can do that and use that carefully in the discovery phase. For this campaign in the consideration phase, we want to go after the keywords that we know we're going to be considered for. So 10 to 15 related keywords. Now, utilizing them as a phrase match gives us a little bit more reach because Amazon can connect us to multiple versions of those related keywords. But this way, we're sticking to the audiences that we know we're considering our product. Next, we have the famous ACOS Scraping Campaign. And this is great because now we're utilizing all of the campaigns we made in the discovery phase, and we're digging into the search report. And here we're going to find the search terms that have 3 or more orders. So this is like getting into the mind of the shopper and finding out which search terms result in an order. And if that search term has 3 or more orders, we want to scrape that search term and go after it in the consideration phase of the buying cycle. Now, you could do 2 or more orders. We prefer 3 or more orders because that tends to do better over time. Here's an example of what one of these campaigns can look like inside of Seller Central. As you can see, we're right around that target ACOS of 40% or less. And you can see that there's lots of orders. And this is a campaign that can really scale because we're going after search terms that already have multiple orders in the search term report. And then we're looking to scale them with a phrase match type. All right, so next we have product targeting. And this is where it gets really exciting because think about the consideration phase. We want to go after our competition where we have some kind of an advantage. And now Amazon easily lets us do that with product targeting and then category targeting with refinements. And the beautiful thing about this is we can go after our main category, but then go after the weaker listings in that category so that we have some kind of advantage, whether that be a price advantage, a review star rating advantage, or even a prime eligibility advantage. And this is really easy to set up inside of Seller Central. You can see here that I chose cat toys. Let's say I'm selling some kind of a cat toy. I could then go in and find the cheaper cat toys and go after those cat toys because I have some kind of a price advantage, or I can go after the review star ratings that are less than my product because I have higher and better reviews than they do. And you could also go after the products that are not prime eligible. Now, the way I suggest setting this up is I suggest setting up different targets per setting. So here's an example of how to refine your categories when setting them up inside of Seller Central. You can see that you can select a price range, a review star rating, and also shipping. In this example, let's say you had a cat toy that you're selling for $12.99. You can go after all of the cat toys that are $13.99 and higher because you have some kind of a price advantage. And let's say your cat toy has 5 stars. You could then set up another target to go after all of the cat toys that have 4 stars or less in terms of the review star ratings. So this is a great way to get in front of shoppers where you have that advantage so you're helping them consider your product over the competition. The final sponsored product ad is product targeting, ASIN targeting with 3 or more orders. Now, if you recall in the discovery phase, we set up some automatic campaigns and we set up some category targeting campaigns. Now what we're doing in the consideration phase is we're harvesting the ASINs that had 3 or more orders and we're setting up specific campaigns just for those ASINs. This way we know that based on data, we typically have done well in the past from those ASINs, and now we want to target them with laser focus in the consideration phase of the buying cycle by setting up a manual campaign. And here's an example of what that looks like. You can see that we have an 11.32% ACOS, 525 orders, and a really sweet CTR percentage overall and lots of impressions with this ASIN targeted campaign. So let's dive into the specifics of the product line campaigns. So the first one is we want to go after after targeted campaigns with phrase match relevant keywords. Just like we did with sponsored product ads, we want to make sure that we go after phrase match because that gives us big enough of a reach, but we're also utilizing phrase match with relevant keywords to get reach to the audiences that we know are considering our products. Next, we want to utilize the famous ACOS scraping like we talked about in the sponsored product ads. Find those search terms with 3 or more orders and set up sponsored brand ads for those search terms. Now guys, if you do this, you're going to be way ahead of your competition. I can tell you a lot of your competition is not doing this. There's a lot of sponsored brand ad junk up on Amazon. So find those search terms where you have 3 or more orders and target them with ACOS scraping campaigns. Next, we want to go after category targeting with refinements. Now, we already went over that in the sponsored product ad section. This is where we're going after the categories where we can refine it down to the products where we have some kind of an advantage and target that in the consideration phase. So in this example, we're going to go after our main category and refine it down to where we have some advantages. And here's an example of what that looks like. If I am selling grill brushes, we can go after the main category, which is grill cleaning and maintenance tools, and then refine that down so that we're targeting the products where we have some kind of an advantage. So here's an example of a sponsored brand ad campaign with multiple orders inside of the consideration phase of the buying cycle doing relatively well with a 26.03% ACOS. All right, guys, finally, let's dive into sponsored display ads. Let's take a look at 2 different audiences absolutely screams the consideration phase of the buying cycle. First, we have the views audience. Now, the views audience, let's dive in. It allows you to show your products to shoppers who have viewed your product detail pages or the detail pages of similar products in the last 30 days, but haven't purchased yet. So this to me absolutely screams the consideration phase of the buying cycle. These are shoppers who viewed your product detail page or your competition's product detail pages and they haven't made a purchase. And now we're gonna show up with our ads to make sure that they choose us over your competition. Now, caveat to this, these ads actually show up off of Amazon, and this is the cost per click model. So we could potentially get a lot of reach using this strategy off Amazon reach to help drive traffic back to Amazon, and we only have to pay if they click on our ad off of Amazon and onto our listing. Here's an example of what that looks like off of Amazon. As you can see, it's a really simple ad that helps drive traffic back to Amazon. The next audience is the searches audience, and let's dive into the definition. Shoppers who searched for keywords relevant to your advertised products and have not purchased in the past 30 days. So a little caveat to this, these ads are going to show up on Amazon and off Amazon. And now this is the CPM model. So we're paying per 1,000 impressions as opposed to cost per click. So what I love about this is we're going after relevant keywords and we know these shoppers have not purchased the product in the past 30 days. So this to me screams the consideration phase of the buying cycle. And here's an example of what that ad looks like. Way back at the beginning of the pandemic, I searched for liposomal vitamin C, but I did not make the purchase. So Amazon is now retargeting me with this ad that's showing up on Amazon using the searches audience inside of sponsored display. And finally, we have product targeting. Now, product targeting for the sponsored display ads is going to show up on Amazon as a cost per click model. And you can see there that there's some really great locations these ads can show up right below the buy box and also right below the bullet points. Now, keep in mind that we can use this strategically, just like we did with sponsored product ads and sponsored brand ads. We can use the main category targeting with refinements and also ASIN targeting with 3 or more orders. So the great thing about this is if you set up your sponsored product ads and your sponsored brand ads, you could very easily use the same strategy in the consideration phase of the buying cycle with sponsored display ads as well. So I hope you found this video helpful and have much more clarity about how to use Amazon ads in the consideration phase of the buying cycle. Be sure to stay tuned for next week's video. We're going to be talking all about the decision phase and the post-purchase phase of the buying cycle. And make sure that if you like this video, subscribe to this channel and click on the little notification button because we're going to come out with videos like this on a weekly basis to help you grow your Amazon brand.